Good morning. It is September 27, 2022. I got something of a twofer for you today. Not so much that I'm doing two books in this one cast, but I'm actually doing two today at the same time. So I just finished doing one on Rant by Chuck Palahniuk, and now I'm jumping over to this one by Jordan Peterson, his two books, The 12 Rules for Life, which is this one right here that gets washed out in a second, but this is The 12 Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos. And then he followed that up after he had some, people just loving the book with Beyond Order, 12 More Rules for Life. Again, I'm off this week from work. I'm trying to catch up on a whole bunch of to-do stuff. I invariably put a whole bunch of notes on Post-it notes throughout the week of, hey, get around to doing this one day, and maybe you should take care of that. So this is a week I'm trying to take care of all my to-dos, and this is on the list. So without further ado, let's go into this. I'm going to start out very simple. I was introduced with the works of Jordan Peterson a couple years ago. I like listening to the man talk. He's a very intelligent person. He is very eloquent in his speech. He uses the right words, and he does make it a point to use the proper words when he speaks. His point of view comes from a very grounded, this is reality point of view, or this is what people have accepted point of view, and lays things out with, not only is this my opinion, but this is how I came to my opinion. So it's very good to hear people say that, because if you don't like the point of view where it comes from, you won't like the opinion. But if you're just against the opinion flat out, if you're one of those people that if you ask them why, they think something is wrong, and they go, seriously? Or are you kidding me? And they can't articulate anything about it, you can't have the discussion to maybe either be persuaded, or persuade them, or just even have the discussion. A lot of things that are going on nowadays is just simply if we have the discussion, progress will be made. People will, give and take on both sides of the fence, and it'll be all good. But I don't want to get too much of that. I want to talk about these books, what I thought of them, and what they are. Going into the foreword to these books, it sounds like after Jordan Peterson had finished his main work, which is called Maps of Meaning. I actually have it up here somewhere behind me. It's the yellow one on the top shelf behind me. I haven't gotten to it yet. Maps of Meaning, I believe, is something that he wrote where he took philosophy, he took psychology, history, religion, and mythology, and put it together into a collective narrative. One of the things apparently is, if you look at religions of the world, they might all have common themes to them. Like, I believe everyone has an end of the world theory, or even beginning of the world theory. And they all come from different places and different sources. However, they have similar themes to them. And that's what's very interesting. Same thing if you look at certain cultures. If you want to take people that are in the middle of a jungle of country A, or in the middle of some small European country B, how they organize themselves can be similar. In fact, one of the stories in the book, Freakonomics, talks about a man who actually went into an inner city for one reason, ends up being, I don't want to say kidnapped, it's not the right word, but he ends up being held by like a drug organization. But he's able to talk to them and realize, listen, not a cop, I'm not in it for you. I was actually here just to get some information on, a census for one person, wanted to know if he still lived there. But he ended up talking to the people there, and he learned a little bit about their structure. And he was amazed at how that structure you could practically overlay over the top of like a Fortune 500 corporation. And they would just mirror each other. So the thing is that some things just tend to go into the same direction, even though they come from different starting areas to get there. So, Maps of Meaning was a book that he wrote about that. I haven't read it yet. I will soon, and I'll give you a little report on that when I can. But from that, Jordan Peterson has kind of taken what he's learned and narrowed it down in focus to just a few items that perhaps people should be more cognizant of in their own life, and it might lead one step closer to having a happier life. It's not a chicken soup for the soul type of book, although there probably are some parallels to that as well. But it is the kind of thing that if you don't like where you are now, or if other people don't like who you are now, is it you or is it them? Maybe if you do a couple things in your life, you can actually be a little bit more complete, and you might actually like what happens to you or for you going forward. That's my basic take on this. It's funny because having just done a Chuck Palahniuk book, to be more complete, sometimes there's things that he writes against. So the fact that these are going, back to back is just complete coincidence, but it's fun. Now, I was debating whether to do this or not, but I actually am going to. So I'm just going to talk real quick. I'm going to say what the 12 rules are, just to give you an understanding that this isn't something that you're going to have to be like, oh my God, you have to change your entire worldview. And it's not something that's saying this is a conservative viewpoint, and therefore Republicans should read this book. Nor is it the kind of book saying, I'm against leftists and against liberals, therefore, if you are too, read this book and yay, yay, rah, rah, let's all join together. It's literally just life. In fact, he'll even say he's not a conservative person. He just, speaks to what he believes is the truth of things, which might be what they are. He is, after all, a clinical psychologist. He's heard people, he's helped people, and he's gotten problems that have solutions to them. The solutions aren't one size fits all, but they are things that might make where you are one step closer to where you want to be. So real quick, the first book, 12 Rules for Life, an Antidote to Chaos as we wash it out in my low technology, which maybe one day I'll learn how to use the cloud and I won't have to do this anymore. So, there it is. Here are the rules, and I don't believe they're in any specific order. But he gives, with every single rule, this is the rule I say, this is what I see, this is where I come to that conclusion, these are examples of this is how I've seen it work, this is how I've seen it not work, and by the way, this is why I believe you should do it. Oh, and before I start, from what I understand, after he wrote that Maps of Meaning book, I guess publishers were after him to try to write more. And he tells a story about how I guess there is a website out there called Quora with a Q. And on Quora, people can ask questions. And he saw some of these questions, and he saw that they were thought-provoking, and he saw that some people might have actually had a need. So he answered questions on Quora. And apparently the website itself has kind of like a rating system that people can tell you how useful this is, once you weed out a bunch of trolls that might be on it as it is. So I believe that the ones that he actually put into this first book, that he had 30 or 40 he wanted to choose from, but he weeded it down to 12, and he eventually got it down to these 12 were from things that he answered on Quora that got the highest votes. And he took some of the knowledge that he had from his Maps and Meaning book and brought them into this as well. Not saying he dumbed it down, but he used already things that he's investigated and researched in his answers. So, here we go. 12 rules in the 12 Rules for Life, an Antidote to Chaos. Number 1, stand up straight with your shoulders back. Number 2, treat yourself like someone you're responsible for helping. Rule 3, make friends with people who want the best for you. Rule 4, compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. Rule 5, do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. 6, set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. 7, pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. 8, tell the truth, or at least don't lie. 9, assume that the person you're listening to might know something that you don't. 10, be precise in your speech. 11. Do not bother children when they are skateboarding. 12. Pet a cat when you encounter one on the street. Which is funny because of all of these, that 12th one, I am not a cat fan. I don't like them, and it also happens to be that I'm allergic. But when he does a chapter even like this, it's not like, well, I don't like cats, why do I even read it? In the first sentences, it's like, or it could be a dog, or it could be whatever else. But what I want to talk about is this act, this how you feel afterwards, and everything else. So if you see, these rules are not trying to change your worldview or anything else, but it's just trying to make aware of yourself. You know, lying can give you some very early on and very quick results when you get through it. But then again, sometimes lies have to compound. Sometimes you have to remember them and chase them up with other lies. And the thing is, who exactly are you lying to? And it's when you lie to yourself that it's the worst. But are you lying to people that you don't care about, or people that are actually in your life? Are you trying to sound more interesting than you actually are? Well, there's some things here that you can take into yourself and just be a little bit better every single day. And that's the kind of thing. What is better, though? Better can mean you're better at your job, and therefore you get recognized more and you get more rewards out of it. Better could be you're a more pleasant person to be around, and therefore more people want to be in your company. Better can be you have a bleak look on the world, your place in it, and what it owes you. Well, maybe by doing a couple things a little bit differently in your life, you might be able to see it a little more cheerfully and all of a sudden appreciate little things as they occur. Like most relationships, you get out of it what you put into it. I'm a married man. If I just, hey, this is my wife, I've already made it. I don't have to worry about upkeeping my appearance. I don't have to put any more effort into it. I've already wooed her. I've already loved her. We already have children, and we're already married. I'm done. Well, guess what? Not really the way to do it. There's a relationship that has to be maintained. It's continually to be built from today to tomorrow to the many tomorrows. And that's the kind of things that some of these things do speak to. You know, keeping the people around you that want things good for you, that's just positive for everybody. But if you keep the toxic people around you and you have to deal with that day in, day out, it might be one of those things where I hate my coworkers, but I have to work because I need money. Well, if you go into the office, you're already starting below the starting line. And you got to deal with this begrudging thought in your mind constantly and then get through the day. And you want to get through the day. Well, you're not experiencing the day. You're not doing your best. Well, that has other lasting effects. So that's what these are. Real quick, I'm going to jump over and go into the sequel, the 12 More Rules for a Life Beyond Order, just to let you know, while it might not be the top 12, these 12 still work out pretty well too. So, real quickly, let me run through this. Rule 1, do not carelessly denigrate social institutions or creative achievements. Rule 2, imagine who you could be, and then aim single-mindedly at that. Rule 3, do not hide unwanted things in a fog. That was actually a very good one. I liked reading that one. 4, notice that opportunity lurks where responsibility has been abdicated. Rule 5, do not do what you hate. Rule 6, abandon ideology. Rule 7, work as hard as you possibly can on at least one thing and see what happens. Rule 8, which my wife likes this one just on its title. Try to make one room in your home as beautiful as possible. Rule 9, if old memories still upset you, write them down carefully and completely. I like the psychology he goes into that one a lot. 10, plan and work diligently to maintain the romance in your relationship. I think I kind of did talk about that recently. 11, do not allow yourself to become resentful, deceitful, or arrogant. And Rule 12, be grateful in spite of your suffering. Nowhere in these two books is it talking about mantras. Is it talking about meditating? Is it talking about eating green tea or drinking green tea or anything like that? Literally, I mean, it's just life advice. And it is that advice. If you follow the rules as if it's something that's hard and fast like a law, you might not want to do it from the get-go, and therefore, any success that you should be able to find in it, you might not. And one would hope you do. And it's a guidebook. It literally is one of these things that would say, from your heart, if you actually want to make an attempt to change something that is stabbing at you in some fashion, this is how you can get past that. You know, turning an enemy into a friend sounds loving. Maybe it's the word of an apostle or a Jesus or Yahweh or whoever else. You know, make everyone your friend and no one enemies. Yeah, that might... It's very hard at the surface. But then again, sometimes, just like the thing with the sad thoughts, writing them down completely, if you find out that someone is your enemy, but you really try to go back into the history of why that is, you might realize it might have been a comment on one day that just struck you wrong, and you've been resentful of the person ever since, to the point that if you actually see them, your mind gets a little bit like, ooh, get run over by a car, kind of a thing. Which sometimes, some would say, do you ever need that thought in your life? So, I read these knowing the author enough, knowing the author's work, should I say, liking it, agreeing it, and then I read the books. I'm supporting him as well by doing so, because I actually bought them in the store. I paid retail on everything, and now it's going to help him. Maybe it'll be a third book with another 12 rules that I'd like to hear the insight for and whatever else. Again, it's not a political commentary book. It's not think this way. It's if there are things that you see in the world that you don't like, either be the change that it needs to be in order to change them, or find out why it affects you the way it does and see maybe if you could work on that. And it's about how you can perceive the world and how the world will treat you if you look for it that way. If things are constantly being smacking you upside the head or poking you when you're down, why are you down? Why are you being poked? Are you being poked? Or is it a hand trying to reach down to pick you up, but it happens to touch you and you're taking it as a poke? That part's not really written here. I just said that right now. But, again, even if you don't want to pay for it, go to the library, borrow it. You have a friend, they might have it, might be available online. You got some credits over at Audible, whatever the case may be. I personally wouldn't mind doing an audio version of this. I mean, I've got my studio behind me in the little small state that it actually is, but I do other works right now. I'm not being paid to do this one. In any event, hopefully this is something that maybe you have heard about with Scorn, and this gives you a little bit of insight of what it is. I'm happy to have these. They're going to go on my shelf, and they will be reread. I think my wife had mentioned that she wants to read these as well when she's done with something else that she has currently a bookmark in. Otherwise, I hope you like this. I hope this is useful in some fashion. Again, if you don't like him and you just want to bash him in the comments, I'd say please don't do that. It's not the purpose of this. And I wouldn't see not having that conversation about it, why bashing you would believe that would even go someplace positive at all. In any event, I'm now ranting myself. I apologize. Take care. Happy reading. Till next time.